Yo, is the first Western central bank in the world about to adopt Bitcoin for its reserves? Well, in less than 24 hours, this country in Europe, with one of the largest reserves in the world relative to the size of its economy, is discussing whether they're going to be putting 5% of their central bank reserves into Bitcoin. We've had about 25 different regions all around the world talk about creating strategic Bitcoin reserves, but we might be able to see some follow through on some of this happening tomorrow. And an interesting thing about this country is the fact that they've also have been pushing legislations to eliminate capital gains on hodled Bitcoin last month. So this country is looking, very positive for Bitcoiners. And what country are we talking about? Who's going to be the first central bank potentially to add Bitcoin to their balance sheet? Well, of course, we are talking about the Czech Republic. Now, I'm not alone here. I have, of course, Internet Sophie, aka Mrs. Nico, on the show today, who's actually probably more of a radical than Nico ever is. So I'm up to tone her down a little bit. And then we got our friend here, Arniel CEO, who is from SIA CFO. For you guys out there as Bitcoiners, he's going to help you guys manage your financial futures. He talk about some Bitcoin taxes later on in the show. But let's get into the headline story and featured story for today. So I'm over here on Reuters, and we got a headline of Czech central bank to consider holding Bitcoin as a reserve asset. And you can read on, the Czech National Bank will consider holding billions of dollars worth of Bitcoin in its reserves. Governor Ales Mikkel said on Wednesday, potentially the first shift into the cryptocurrency by a Western central bank if it went ahead. Mikkel said that the idea was still under analysis and no immediate decision was forthcoming, but I think this is still a huge trend here, a new trend we're seeing here. The fact that a central bank is even talking about adding Bitcoin to its reserve is completely crazy considering everything else happening in the EU. Every other central banker in the EU has been very hesitant and treating Bitcoin kind of like toxic sludge, and they're doing everything they can to separate themselves from Bitcoin. Remember, Chrissy Lagarde this week also is pushing, or rather last week, the end of last week, doubling down on a euro, a digital euro over there, CBDC. So interesting trend we're seeing here. Now, central banks traditionally park reserves in more conservative assets, and some have warned about the risk of using cryptocurrencies in public coffers. Now, again, a new trend that I think we're starting to see right now is these people, whether it's pension funds, central banks, nation states, they're not necessarily looking at Bitcoin as, just a speculative asset. It's starting to grow that they're looking at Bitcoin as a conservative investment, which is a crazy new development we've seen in the last couple of weeks. Obviously, ever since kind of the U.S. has went down the strategic Bitcoin reserve or strategic digital asset reserve path. Anyways, going further on this article, since taking the helm of the Czech central bank in 2022, Mikkel has led a drive to diversify the bank's hefty reserves through the gradual gold purchases and shifting a bigger share of the portfolios into equities to create sustained profits. He plans to present this consideration of including Bitcoin to the bank's 7-strong board on Thursday. And this came out of the Financial Times. If approved, the bank could eventually hold as much of 5% of its 140 billion euro reserves, or about 146 billion in dollars, in Bitcoin. And in a later post, he clarified, and he's adding to the discussion. He says, no decision is imminent. Bitcoin has significant volatility, which makes it harder to take advantage of its current low correlation with other assets. But that's why I will ask our team on Thursday to further assess Bitcoin's potential role as a reserve. Nothing more, nothing less. Now, going further, it's very interesting that the governor, head of the central bank over there in the Czech Republic, Mikkel, is a former investment fund manager, and said investment in Bitcoin could prove to be worthless, or it could have, quote, an absolutely fantastic value. Kind of sounds like what Saylor's been saying about Bitcoin for a long time. It's either going to be zero or it's going up forever. It's either going to be worth nothing or it's going to be worth a lot. So it sounds like maybe the governor of the Czech Republic Central Bank may be listening to Michael Saylor over here and at least trying to grapple this idea of, hey, maybe we need to add Bitcoin to our central bank reserves, which is absolutely crazy. Now, adding, he said, Bitcoin would trend higher even even without the backing of U.S. President Donald Trump, since it's an alternative investment for many people. It's something, you know, our chat's been saying constantly. They're kind of, you know, some of them are pushing back on Trump embracing Bitcoin. It's like, we don't need Trump for Bitcoin to go to infinity. It's like, yes, we all agree. And we don't need central bankers to make Bitcoin number go up. But this is where we are right now. The politicians and central bankers are looking to add Bitcoin to the reserve. It's just absolutely crazy. Now, rounding out this article, Mikkel highlighted wider investor interest in Bitcoin since BlackRock and other firms last year launched Bitcoin exchange traded funds, which is kind of the trend we've been talking about here on the show for a long time. That it seems ever since BlackRock got into the game, the game has completely changed. We've been legitimized. And we were actually talking about this, was it yesterday with McShane, this idea that ever since the suits came into Bitcoin, it has seemed, or at least you would think it would legitimize Bitcoin in the eyes of many people. Well, maybe it's not legitimizing Bitcoin in the eyes of retail, but ever since Uncle Larry's came in, Bitcoin is definitely legitimizing Bitcoin in the eyes of institutional asset managers, central bankers, you know, nation state leaders. So, hey, personally, I am in the game of Bitcoin of separating money from state, separating, or rather, you know, eliminating the central bank. So personally, I'm not the biggest fan of this move because I'm not one of these people that think there will be no banks in the future. I think there will be Bitcoin banks in the future. And as far as I'm concerned, printing money is the root cause of the problem that most of us are feeling right now. Of course, we always say, fix the money, fix the world. So seeing central banks talk about adding Bitcoin to reserves, or even a dollar or Bitcoin-backed stable coins. All this stuff does make me feel a little weird as a Bitcoiner because I thought our goal here was to eliminate fiat currencies, and now they're looking at us as a way to fix their system. So it is a strange time we find ourselves as Bitcoiners, but as the saying always says, you know, Bitcoin is for enemies. Bitcoin is for anyone. And if we have a problem on an individual level, then you can sure as hell bet that the institutions out there, the central banks and nation states also have a very similar problem. You cannot save in fiat currencies. And as the world starts to move away from dollar US government debt, they're looking for alternatives. And so there's a lot of things to talk about with just this announcement in general. One, of course, looking for gains. Central bankers are also looking for gains. Everyone's looking for gains. Two, looking for alternatives and ways to secure their financial system. So is this just a growing trend that we're going to see? Will we see this actually get pushed through? Will another central bank follow suit? Will we finally see the money printer turned on to buy Bitcoin? Because once that happens, I think it's just pure capitulation and them admitting that fiat currencies are trash. So we haven't gone that far on this path, but I think this is a very interesting development. Could you have guessed 15 years ago, or even when you got in Bitcoin? I got in 2017. I would have never guessed even a central banker would be talking about adding Bitcoin to their reserves. And yet here we are. And again, as a Bitcoiner, it's hard for me to cheer on central banks adding Bitcoin, but it's our duty to just keep telling you the developments and what's going on. So this time might be different, guys. I hate saying this on the show because it's the beginning of 2025. We're in a new bull run. This is a new cycle, but it legitimately feels like this cycle is 100% different. And as much as we say that, maybe the cycle theory on Bitcoin isn't different. Maybe, you know, end of 2025, we're going to get another bear market for 2026. But you can tell that the narrative and the rhetoric around Bitcoin is different. Now that we have politicians, now that we have bankers, now that we have literally the richest institutional asset managers in the world, even embracing Bitcoin, talking about Bitcoin in good light, I think this is a totally new game. And all of us Bitcoiners, as much as we don't want to accept this, we got to accept the fact that, hey, Bitcoin is maturing. And I actually saw a great tweet this morning before I pass it on over to Soph and Arniel. I think it was Rob Hamilton. Of course, we had him on the show the other day. He's a part of Anchor Watch, and he had a tweet this morning, and I'm going to butcher it, but he said something on the lines of peoples whose identity is completely wrapped up in Bitcoin dominating the world, absolutely shook and devastated by the fact that every institutional manager, nation state, and central bank is adopting Bitcoin, or at least looking into it. So, you know, you can hold two contradictory thoughts right now. Yes, Bitcoin will separate money and state. And yes, we are at this point in the story where the central bankers and politicians and the biggest institutional asset managers, literally the fiat Cantillon insiders are looking at Bitcoin as an alternative to the fiat currencies. So, man, all I'm going to say is buckle up. Things are getting crazy. This is very interesting stuff. We'll see if anything comes out of this. Of course, you know, I can already hear that you guys saying like, this is just an announcement of an announcement. I get it, but this is a totally new development. We're finding ourselves in the Bitcoin space, and it really just goes to show, like, to the people that are sitting on the sidelines and looking at all this stuff, I really don't know what they're thinking right now. You'd think that Bitcoin would be legitimized in the eyes of the masses, but it seems like retail's still asleep here. So interesting stuff. Keep stacking sats, keep taking Bitcoin into custody. This is how we win as individuals. This is how we ensure our freedom. But it looks like if you're selling Bitcoin right now, you might be selling it to, you know, your government of choice here, rather maybe your government of unchoice, but things to consider. Anyway, Sophie, I want to pass it to you because I think you had a great take when we were talking about this before the show. So Sophie, Internet Sophie, Nico's wife, toxic Bitcoiner over here. What's your thoughts on seeing the head of the Czech Republic Central Bank seemingly embracing Bitcoin?
Well, banks are realizing that they're on the verge of extinction, honestly. So they have to either adapt or die. And rather than die, rather than just let it all go to the wayward, they're realizing, hey, we can offer a new service. We might not be the place where people store their wealth anymore, but we might be the place where people take out loans against their Bitcoin so that they don't have to sell it. A lot of people have been talking about that on Twitter, getting around paying that capital gains tax by borrowing against your Bitcoin so that you don't have to sell it.
Uh-oh. I guess. Okay, hold on. It's a live show, guys. We do this live.
Oh, no. Did I get...
Yeah,
Am I back? Am I back?
You're back.
Oh, my God. I don't know what's happening with the internet today. But as I was value that Bitcoin will have is going to likely outpace the value of those loans when you borrow against it. So I think that banks are going to have to completely pivot towards this new technology. I think actually a lot of industries are going to have to pivot. And the reasons haven't caught on is the volatility that we're still experiencing with Bitcoin. Also, part of the reason that these institutions adopting Bitcoin is so important is because retailers can't pay for their expenses unless government, banks, all of the surrounding foundation supports a business is able to adopt Bitcoin. So if you think of adoption as an onion where the outer layers start to adopt and then we closer to the individual, the next stop in that onion is retail. And after retail, it's going to go straight to the individual. The moment that people can buy things on Amazon, and I remember people saying this way back in 2017, when people can buy things on Amazon with their Bitcoin, it's over. That is the moment that hyper Bitcoinization is going to take over.
Totally. And that, I think this is one of the secondary effects that we're seeing right now. Like, it's going to be very interesting, especially right now. You're hearing in the US as well, you know, eliminating capital gains and basically freeing capital to flow globally, internally in the nation. And if that does happen around Bitcoin, like, it's game on. And, you know, now that we're seeing banks and the biggest institutional managers in the world, even the biggest banks in the US kind of slowly embrace Bitcoin, it is going to be interesting whether all of this stringent regulation is going to be surrounding Bitcoin. And once, like you said, an Amazon starts to take Bitcoin as payments, I think they did it for a little bit. I could be misremembering here, but once people can actually use their Bitcoin, it's really going to take off. And that's a very interesting dichotomy we find ourselves in. It's like, okay, well, if a government or a central bank is holding Bitcoin on their reserves, and then they have laws that are stopping individuals using Bitcoin, like, how do we circle this square? So a lot of interesting questions to answer moving forward. Anyways, let's pass it on to Arniel. Hey, you're a little more familiar with, you know, with the laws around Bitcoin. So what's your thoughts seeing a central bank proposing the adoption of Bitcoin?
You know, Opti, this just reminds me of that image of the domino where you have one domino that's smaller and then it knocks over a bigger domino and a bigger domino and a bigger domino. Last cycle, I think many of us thought that there was going to be massive adoption across nationals across sovereign states. And we saw one with El Salvador. But I think that really was one of the dominoes that really set a lot of this into motion. And so over the last cycle, we've had a lot more conversation, a lot more education, and a lot more infrastructure within the Bitcoin community, Bitcoin services, and technologies out there to allow for massive adoption globally. And so it's amazing to see that the conversation is just starting to increase further and further from here. I think if this had happened 4 years ago, 2 years ago, even, it would be a lot more difficult to get these nations onboarded and these corporates onboarded, and also retail. Now, I think there still are some blockers here in allowing more retail and more individuals to get into Bitcoin. I've been having a lot of conversations recently just with neighbors. So I have neighbors, and they're boomers. They're big Trump supporters, big Trump fans, and so they're watching the news 24/7, just seeing what Trump is doing, and they're hearing crypto this, digital asset this, Bitcoin this, and them knowing what I do and who I am, like, hey, what is this? And so people are starting to question more and more, what is Bitcoin? And they need a lot of help. And so with these central banks starting to adopt Bitcoin, I think that's just going to accelerate further what's going to happen here.
Yeah, totally. It's very interesting what's going on right now. Obviously, as a longtime Bitcoiner, we believe in the separation of money state. We want as many individuals to hold Bitcoin. Like, that's how we really secure our freedom in this new digital age. And I actually have an interesting story for you guys in the news about DARPA doing like a pre-crime AML proposal. So, as we say all the time, it's Bitcoin or slavery. We're seeing right now that there's a fork in the road. It's either a digital future that is built on a freedom technology, or one that is totally controlled. And it is interesting when these people, whether it's nation states, whether it's the central banks, whether it's the Ray Dalios, the JP Morgans of the world, they look at Bitcoin and they're not being so negative about Bitcoin. That has to be sending off alarms to everyday people. They're like, wait, what is going on here? So Arniel, I love the fact that you're saying, I know some boomer MAGA people that are hearing Trump talk about Bitcoin or crypto, and they're like, what is this? Like, what is actually going on right now? So, hey, we're in a whole new paradigm. It's really crazy. And I've been saying that for a while, that I really do believe where we are right now, you'd think more people would be asking about what this Bitcoin or crypto thing is, but it seems like retail is still kind of asleep. It seems like individuals are still kind of asleep at the wheel. Obviously, I think there's a lot of factors going on. There is a lot of noise and distractions in the world. Also, a lot of people don't have as much capital as they used to have in the past. So people are struggling right now. And I think it's more important than ever for us to continue to talk about Bitcoin, continue to get this message out to people, continue to try to help people. I think it's our duty to help people.
HODL and continue to HODL because nobody's going to sell right now. Anybody who's selling right now it's because they like desperately need the liquidity, and that's fine. But the majority of people who have been holding for a long time, they're not going to sell. And so everyone's just go up. And it's really interesting that now the banks are starting to adopt Bitcoin and have it as a strategic reserve, because guess what else banks do? They give out loans for mortgages. And we're the generation that has been complaining that we're not able to buy a house. Everybody I know is renting. And so the fact that banks are adopting Bitcoin is kind of a signal. Soon we might be able to actually, the birth rate might go up. And that is a beautiful thing. It's not really just about the retail aspect and all of these short-term transactions. It's really about also the longevity of how to provide for your family. And I think that's why a lot of us are in Bitcoin.
Yeah, totally. Just trying to survive, man. We say it all the time here. You come for the money, you stay to fix the money. But in the short term, you're just like, you're trying to make sure that you're not just treading water, that you can actually live a decent life. And I think this is one of the messaging we can get to a lot of people. It's like, look, life's hard. It's hard to save dollars. It's not a good economy, no matter what the numbers are. But a way to protect yourself, a way to save yourself is by just saving in Bitcoin. It's literally that simple. And yet it is so complicated for people to wrap their minds around it. It's absolutely incredible. Sometimes it's frustrating just talking about Bitcoin so much to people. And they're like, I don't get this. What is this internet nerd money? And you're like, bro, just buy some Bitcoin, please. Just buy some Bitcoin. All right. Anyways, guys. Oh, jump in, Arniel.
Oh, yeah. I was going to say, so the clients that I talk to, they're putting their life energy into, a W-2 job or a business that they're building. They're literally putting energy into something that they're trying to build, for their future and for their family. In the past, that energy just went straight into fiat, into US dollars, into cash, whatever it was that they were saving into. And that was depleting their wealth and their purchasing power. But I think it's such a blessing that we have Bitcoin now, because instead of putting their life energy into something that's constantly depleting, they can put it into something constant.
Love it. Bars. Hold on. Let's go. All right, guys, let's get on to the show. We got a jam-packed show for you guys. But of course, we got to pay the bills here at Simply Bitcoin. So shouts out to Bitcoin Well. They are the best place to buy Bitcoin. Enable your independence. Get over there. You need to actually have a Bitcoin wallet to buy Bitcoin from them. They have automatic self-custody, which means they can never rug you, guys. I don't know if you've heard of maybe this FTX thing. Well, that's not possible with Bitcoin Well, because you need to actually have a Bitcoin wallet to buy Bitcoin. They are never holding your Bitcoin. It's going directly to you. And actually, guys, a little sneak peek. Adam's going to be coming on tomorrow, and he was telling me we can't announce some things, but some cool things are coming out maybe next week with Bitcoin Well that I think you guys are going to really like. So stick around for that. And of course, guys, make sure if you are in the market to buy a big chunk of Bitcoin, hit the Bitcoin Well Infinite team, a Bitcoin OTC desk where you can buy up to or starting minimum of $50,000 buys. So if you're on the sidelines, you're looking at this 100K price and you're like, it's going up from here, get in touch with the Bitcoin Well Infinite team. Email nico@bitcoinwell.com. We'll give you a white glove service. We'll walk you through it, get you good self-custody, and you can start to buy at the very start, $50,000 per buy. You can, buy up to millions of dollars of Bitcoin. If you're on the sidelines watching the show and you're like, man, I got some deep pockets, it's melting, you need to get in touch with the Bitcoin Well Infinite team. All right, guys, let's get into the show.
I want to tell you guys about our sponsor, Stampseed. Is your Bitcoin in cold storage really secure? Are your seed words really secure? Stampseed's do-it-yourself kit has everything you'll need to hammer your seed words into commercial-grade titanium plates instead of writing them down on paper. Don't do that. Paper sucks. You want to literally stamp your seed into this plate of titanium. Your words are actually stamped into the metal plate with this hammer. So once your words are in, they aren't going anywhere. No risk of the plate breaking apart and your pieces falling everywhere. Titanium stamp seeds will survive nearly triple the heat produced by a house fire. They are also crush-proof, waterproof, non-corrosive, and most importantly, because this is generational wealth, time-proof. All things that paper is not, allowing you to hodl your Bitcoin for the long haul. I mean, here is the plate that they crushed. They put in water, they put a blowtorch to it, and as you can see, the words have survived. Stamp your seed on Stampseed. And you can use promo code SIMPLY to get 15% off anything on their store.
All right, guys, scan the QR code right there and use a promo code SIMPLY to get 15% off. Make sure, you write your seed phrase on something that's indestructible, like Stampseed's kit and in titanium. All right, guys. Hey, there's over about 2,000 of you guys watching right now. Smash the like button, subscribe, comment on the show. Let us know your thoughts on everything going on. We got a jam-packed show, but it really helps push us in the algo and get more people to understand that Bitcoin is taking over the world. Anyways, I'm hearing the numbers, guys. You already know the deal. Clark Moody's dashboard. The current Bitcoin price is $102,580. The sats per dollar, aka how much Bitcoin you can buy for a single dollar, aka how much the dollar $1 worth in Bitcoin is currently at 975 sats per dollar. The block height is 881,383. The Bitcoin market cap in dollar terms is $2.03 trillion. We have reclaimed our $2 trillion market cap. And the Bitcoin versus gold market cap, a lot of room to run in the hard money game, is at 10.59%. That is going to go to 100% soon. We are taking gold's market cap soon. And the total percentage of Bitcoin that will ever be issued is currently at 94.36%, roughly about 19.8 million Bitcoin in circulation. And I saw Nico add to this number, and it's crazy how low it's gotten. The realized monetary inflation of Bitcoin is currently at 1.04%. Literally no other fiat currencies come close. Bitcoin is literally the hardest money in the world. You might want to get some in case it is catching on. You know, if you're feeling poor right now, maybe you want to start saving in Bitcoin because they can't inflate your purchasing power, rather deflate your purchasing power. All right, guys.
Get ready for a lot of pain.
All right, guys. So first of all, you know, you guys may be wondering, why are we playing this clip? Well, Vivek Ramaswamy came on Adin Ross's stream. All you guys here most likely know Vivek. He was a part of Doge. Now it seems like he's out. He's obviously a Bitcoiner. He's a part of the Republican, right-wing influencer circle. But he went on Adin Ross's stream. And if you guys don't know who Adin Ross is literally the biggest live streamer in the world right now. He's like the top of Zoomer live streamers. He's like the GOAT when it comes to what the kids are watching right now. And of course, I'm not bringing this on just because it's Vivek on Adin Ross stream, but it seems like they're talking about Bitcoin. And, you know, there is some points in this little clip here of Vivek talking about Bitcoin that I kind of disagree with. But the fact that Vivek is on Adin Ross's stream exposing the Bitcoin message, he does say crypto, so, you know, it is what it is, but exposing the Bitcoin message to a younger generation, a younger demographic, this is how we win. This is how we infiltrate the culture. This is how we take over the culture, is by more people understanding what Bitcoin is. So let's play this clip and then we'll talk about it.
Hard gold doesn't have to be the only gold. Gold has to be transported. It has to be held. What if there was a different way to hold a finite supply of something of inherent value? So that was actually part of the premise behind Bitcoin.
Bitcoin, yeah.
So I would put that in a different and, in some sense, superior category to something that you could just print more of, because then it's not differentiated. I'm not one of these people, though, that turns crypto into like a new religion. I'm all in on this coin or that coin. It becomes like a substitute for faith.
Got it.
But I do think that the ability to opt out of the traditional financial system is a good thing, and it would hold people accountable, hold people's feet to the fire by keeping the government more accountable. If people had the ability to opt out of the traditional currency system, that then forces the government itself in the long run to be more disciplined about.
All right, let me point out the parts where I disagree first and foremost. Obviously, it's Bitcoin, not crypto. I think anyone that has any understanding of what's going on in the Bitcoin space understands that Bitcoin leads everything. Everything else is trash. There's Bitcoin and then there's shitcoin, as Warren Davidson said in Congress. So it's anytime you hear kind of a normie production talk about crypto, I just hear Bitcoin. It used to be like chalk, fingernails on a chalkboard when I hear crypto. Now it's just like, okay, we have a lot to do in education. Until we get the whole world to just say Bitcoin, we still have a job here at Simply Bitcoin. Now, the second thing,
I think being a libertarian is kind of about just accepting that people are going to do dumb stuff and letting them do it anyway.
Exactly. Now, the next part is everyone's talking about the Bitcoin religion comment. So, personally,
It's a cult. Put some wrecked on our cult.
Yeah, first of all, I'm a Catholic here. I'm a Christian here. So I only have one religion here, and Bitcoin isn't my religion. But if it was my religion, I would like the tax exemptions of a religious cult here. So, hey, maybe it's a good thing if Bitcoin was a religion. But yeah, as Sophie was saying, it's a cult, man. It's a hard money cult, or rather a hard money club here. And
be a part of.
Yeah, drink the Kool-Aid. It's the best. Anyways, let's talk about what the actual substance of that clip there. First of all, Vivek kind of relates it to gold, which it's an old meme, but it seems to be like the strongest meme right now is that Bitcoin is digital gold. Personally, I'm starting to feel a little weary about that, because it kind of insinuates that Bitcoin is just a store of value, whereas I would consider it, the best money, perfect money in the world. And, it's a medium of exchange and a unit of account and a store of value all at the same time. So, hey, we'll take the good with the bad. Now, I think the main segment and the real meat of this is this idea of opting out of the fiat system. And if more people do it, as Vivek was saying, then yes, we will be putting a check on government spending. They will not be able to deflate your purchasing power. They can't just print money out of thin air. They can't just print Bitcoin out of thin air. And the austerity that will come with Bitcoin and the adoption of Bitcoin will inevitably mean that governments will get smaller. If they can't print money to, pay for more agencies, if at a point the military out there doesn't want this funny money token paper money that we call the dollar, things will fundamentally change. And we actually have an option now. You don't have to just take the abuse from the Fed or, government spending. You have an option now to save in something that they cannot destroy the purchasing power of. And of course, that is Bitcoin. Now, this message was spread, and maybe I can look while I pass it over to our guests. This on Adin Ross's stream, and again, for you guys out there that aren't just chronically online and don't know who Adin Ross is, he's literally one of the biggest streamers in the world. So you can kind of think of him like the Joe Rogan of the Zoomer generation. He's setting the culture out there. He gets probably the most views from anyone out there of all the streamers. He is a big deal in the younger generation and live streaming culture. So
he's part of the reason a lot of the youth voted for President Trump, because he did that interview with them.
So you may not know who Adin Ross is. This may be the first time. I think we brought him up on the show a few times before, but he is a huge deal on internet culture. So having and hosting these conversations, kudos to Adin Ross, because hey, the children out there, the Zoomers out there, the young adults out there, if they understand Bitcoin, if they have this asymmetric understanding of what is going on in the world, they start saving in Bitcoin, then, having a lot of young, energetic, wealthy kids is going to be a way better future than, us millennials that are all just perpetually broke out here. So, hopefully some kids are stacking Bitcoin after this clip, though. Again, he said crypto. So maybe they're going to get wrecked in meme coins. So, let's get them to talk about Bitcoin here. Anyway, so chime in, and then I'm going to see if I can get these numbers on how many people watch this stream.
Yeah, I'm optimistic on this next generation. I mean, we give them a lot of flack for a lot of things that have happened. But you know what? We have Bitcoin, and they're able to save in the greatest money known to man. I have 4 children myself. They're part of the next generation, the alpha generation. And, there's so many resources out there now just learning about Bitcoin. But, with the Zoomers, with Gen Z learning more and more about crypto, it's going to make them be more curious about what is this crypto thing? What is this Bitcoin thing? And hopefully many of them will come to know a lot of the Bitcoin ethos and why Bitcoin and not just crypto in general.
Totally. That's like the biggest thing we need to do right now is I've been saying it for a while on the show. It's like, our duty here is to separate Bitcoin from crypto, because it's all getting lumped together, especially now, with this new SEC agency, the David Sachs crypto czar, Trump dropping a couple meme coins. And we're gonna get compiled into a bunch of hot garbage. And I'm trying to do our best here, and to make sure that people just save in Bitcoin. Bitcoin's the only thing that's really going to hold value over time. And so I know a lot of kids want a very fast and quick way to make money. It's not sexy to just tell them, hey, save in Bitcoin, versus, oh, you could buy this meme coin and you can become a millionaire overnight. Like, it's not sexy. Everyone wants this very quick shortcut to being wealthy. But hey, if you're 20 years old right now, you save in Bitcoin, by the time you're 30, you're going to be way, way wealthier than you would be if you didn't save in Bitcoin. So either way, long term, Bitcoin is the generational wealth move here. So before I pass it over to you, so for you guys that want to know, how big Adin Ross is, he's on Kick, which is like a Twitch alternative. He's got 1.5 million followers on his Kick and about 150,000 views on this video alone. And this just dropped 18 hours hours ago. So I'm guessing it might get around, 250,000 views on this clip. So that's a way bigger pool than most of all of the Bitcoin space in general. And it's a new audience. So, hey, we'll see if the Zoomers out there start stacking some Bitcoin or if they're going to get wrecked in meme coins. But hey, interesting development. So what's your thoughts on this stuff?
I think that the know what they're doing.
Hot take.
They know that Bitcoin, I really think that they know what they're doing, and they're going to want to take a risk. Nobody is going to save. What young person has ever in the history of the world saved money and then just left it there? Nobody wants to gamble. Everybody wants to get rich quick. And so it's not really a surprise to me that not just the younger generation, but also our own government, banking institutions, like everybody is going through their shitcoin phase. And it is a phase. It's like your teenage years. You want to do crazy things, but eventually life catches up, get wrecked. You have to think long term. Your prefrontal cortex starts to develop, and you only real hard asset that is Bitcoin. And but that consciousness takes time to learn. Majority of people holding Bitcoin, even though nobody likes to admit it, at one point started off as a shitcoiner because you saw the opportunity or the potential, but it's kind of like a many will enter, few will win sort of thing. Many people get wrecked. But again, that's something that I've talked about before. There are bad things that are going to have to happen to people in order for the collective consciousness to fully shift towards Bitcoin. Wrecked by shitcoins or getting wrecked by inflation or the world in general, something drastic is going to have to happen for people to learn that Bitcoin is the only hard money. It's the only way that we're going to be able to fix the money. And they're
Yeah, totally, Sophie. And I mean, even talking about hard money, like when I was 20 years old, I didn't understand what hard money meant. Money to me is the dollar. And I think a lot of people have that same idea where it's like, what does hard money mean? Like, it's like titanium, like, it's hard, it makes a noise. Like, what does that actually mean? And a lot of people, in Bitcoin, we have the 1 Bitcoin equals 1 Bitcoin meme. A lot of people think, $1 equals $1 over time and space. And it's like, that's not what's going on right now. And so educating kids out there to like, yo, your money sucks. Like, your money is horrible. There's no way you're going to be able to live a good life if you're trying to save in dollars. And actually, Sophie, there was one thing you said, like, who in their 20s is saving dollars? Well, I didn't know better, but I would save dollars under my mattress, and I could only hold like $300 at a time because it was burning a hole in my pocket. So, us 65, actually, people are telling me I'm a 45 IQ Bitcoiner now. So us 45 IQ people out there, we save dollars under our mattress and we get absolutely wrecked. And this is what we're trying to change.
Well, you're an exceptional human being, Opti, because
special ed.
I went out on these streets, okay? I went out on these streets and I started asking people for one of our review videos. I was like, hey, do you save money? If so, how do you save it? I would say that 8 out of 10 people did not save money, and their answer to me was like, YOLO. Like, why would I save money? It's going to be worth less tomorrow.
At least they know that. At least
even though they know nothing about money, at least they know that. And so then I tell them about Bitcoin, and then it's like their brain just turns off because it's too many extra steps.
Yeah, totally.
But eventually, like, I love chat. Pain is the best teacher. It really is the best teacher. And so, people will eventually learn.
Pain definitely is the best teacher. And I think Gen Z, they're at the perfect opportunity right now. I mean, they're feeling the effects of inflation. I mean, they're going into the job market, graduating from these degrees with tens and maybe even hundreds of thousands of dollars in college loan debt, and they're not able to get jobs. And so I think they're at the perfect opportunity right now for them to open their eyes to the ills of fiat and getting into Bitcoin as well.
Totally, 100%. Okay, hold on. We're trying to get Soph's internet better up in here, so I'll deal with it.
Yeah, for being internet So I'm doing a terrible
I'll deal with
job.
it on the transition. But anyways, so if they're still loving you in the chat, and they said even though her internet is worse than Nico, she speaks better and looks better. So you're still winning over here. We're still winning. All right, guys, let's get into the news because we do have a very big news story right now. So we'll cover that, and I'll try to get Sophie's internet better on the next segment. Here we go.
I want to give a very special shout out to our sponsor, Compass Mining. They make Bitcoin mining accessible to everyone, from beginners to experienced investors. Their turnkey miners gets you online and hashing within 48 hours, making it easier than ever to start your mining journey. Plus, with their active marketplace, you can resell your miner at any time, adding flexibility and value to your investment. Visit their website to access a wealth of resources, learning everything you need to know about Bitcoin mining. Take your first step into the world of Bitcoin mining with confidence. Discover more at compassmining.io. Again, compassmining.io, and see how Compass Mining can power your success. I want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Foundation. It's self-custody done right. They built a premium grade hardware wallet called Passport right here in the US, and it integrates seamlessly with their free app called Envoy. Passport is fully open source and verifiable. It's the most intuitive Bitcoin wallet designed with a UX reminiscent of a classic feature phone, so you'll know how to navigate it and use it the moment you pick it up. It's also air-gapped, meaning Bitcoin stays offline, never touching an internet connection. It's Bitcoin only, open source verifiable, air-gap security model, gorgeous design craft, premium grade materials. Get your Bitcoin off exchanges and into your own hands in just a few minutes with Passport at foundation.xyz/simply. Get peace of mind.
All right, guys, scan the QR code. Get yourself a beautiful Passport by Foundation. It is grandma friendly. It is the GOAT. All right, guys, let's get into this news story here. One second. Soph is having internet issues. All right. Soph, if you can hear me, just turn your Wi-Fi on back on or whatever. We'll try. We'll do. Let's see. Yeah, you're looking a little wrecked here, but whatever. We'll roll with the punches. All right. Anyways, guys, a lot of stuff has been going on. On one hand, it looks like Bitcoin is slowly but surely taking over the world. It looks like a lot of people are starting to embrace Bitcoin, which is kind of ironic. There is this growing theme, or maybe this growing divide in the Bitcoin space right now where, hey, we're here to separate money from state. And now it seems like we have the state kind of on our doorstep embracing Bitcoin. And, on that front, it's just very interesting times. Now, on the back end, on the fiat side of things, you're seeing a lot of interesting things coming out of the Trump administration, whether it's tariffs, whether it's BRICS nations starting to leave the, U.S. treasuries, drop U.S. dollar debt, U.S. dollar denominated debt, government debt, or seeing a lot of, privacy overstepping. We still have to deal with the Samurai wallet case. We're seeing that there's a lot of things going out of chain analysis where we're considered a bunch of money launderers and we're funding terrorists, etc. So there's two things going on right now. The fiat world is starting to clamp down. They're starting to realize they're losing their hold on things. And then the fiat and the Bitcoin world it seems like a lot of people are embracing Bitcoin. And of course, there will be inevitable clash here, and hopefully as a Bitcoiner this is a non-violent clash, but we don't know where that is going. We have no idea. We can't predict the future, but there will be some kind of inevitable, metaphorical battle here in the future. And hopefully this transition to a Bitcoin standard takes a long time, but we're seeing that the fiat system is fighting back. They're not going to let go of their power. And part of this is what I'm covering today. So first of all, shouts out to The Rage, aka @TheRageTech on Twitter. This is Lola Leitz. I've been highlighting Lola Leitz's work on this show for a long time in the last couple of months because She's really on the beat on what's going on, the overstep of the fiat system. She is doing incredible investigative journalist. So shouts out to Lola. She's doing great work. I highly recommend you guys go follow her on Twitter, The Rage Tech. She's constantly doing investigative journalists on this front here. So I highly encourage you guys to go support her work. She's doing great stuff. Anyways, here's a tweet, and it goes, DARPA to launch pre-crime AML program. The Department of Defense is planning to launch a new anti-money laundering program aiming to stop money laundering before it happens. Now, of course, this isn't just about AML in general. Bitcoin, or rather cryptocurrencies, are being specifically named in this. So let's break down this article from Lola, and it goes, DARPA, of course, to launch pre-crime AML program. And now getting into this article, here's the bullet point. DARPA announced plans to launch a pre-crime AML program. Again, pre-crime, very Orwellian, dystopian, 1984 rhetoric here. Pre-crime, it's getting crazy, guys. You know, this might be why we're seeing a huge move from, you know, governments around the world to embrace AI. It's to stop pre-crime. Anyways, pre-crime AML program that aims to deter money laundering before it happens, citing North Korea's use of cryptocurrency, and the program will likely be applied to digital assets. The program engages controversial predictive policing practices known to further arbitrary discrimination. So DARPA, or the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, has filed a special notice on the launch of an anticipatory and adaptive anti-money laundering program, aka A3ML, that, quote, seeks to revolutionize the practice of anti-money laundering by developing, quote, algorithms to sift through financial transaction graphs for suspicious activity patterns in attempts to anticipate future activities. Quote, we want to stop our adversaries from laundering money to evade sanctions, buy weapons, and fund drugs that unalive Americans. Is that what you want? Well, me too, writes the A3AML program manager David Dewars on LinkedIn. Quote, if successful, A3ML would make it prohibitively expensive for adversaries to transfer illicit value through the global financial system. The technical hypothesis is illicit finance tactics, techniques, and procedures can be algorithmically extracted from diverse data sources and represented in a generic shareable form, Dewars writes. The goal of the program is to, quote, eliminate global money laundering by replacing the current manual, reactive, and expensive analytic practices with agile algorithmic methods. Besides a congressional report on the state of AML and the DOJ indictment alleging a money laundering conspiracy between Mexican and Chinese nationals to finance the Sinaloa cartel, the notice references a CNN report on North Korea's use of cryptocurrencies to fund its missile program, suggesting that A3ML may additionally be applied in the digital asset sector. Notably, you know, everyone's unfavorite boogeyman here, Chainalysis, recently corrected its 2023 analysis of stolen funds attributed to the Democratic People's Republic of Korea by almost half, from $1 billion down to $660 million. Chainalysis has not responded to a request for comment whether it had informed the Treasury Department of the correction. Again, it seems, if you aren't familiar with the stuff going on with Chainalysis, they have this black box code here. They say they can predict financial crimes, and it seems like they are damn near guessing at what's going on. And yet the U.S. government is using it as law that, you know, they're actually tracking financial criminals out there, quote, financial criminals. So we are not fans of Chainalysis, and Lola has been on the beat of kind of, you know, biting at the nails of Chainalysis and wanting them to have some transparency there. But it appears they are not as transparent. We don't know if they are talking to the Treasury Department, correcting their mistakes. But it seems like the government agencies are using their reports as official reports of things going on. So anyways, the U.S. government's AML programs have recently faced criticism from within the government's own ranks, with former FinCEN leadership questioning whether reporting frameworks as codified under the Bank Secrecy Act are useful at all. Dubbed, quote, the world's least effective policy experiment, research suggests that the global effectiveness rate of current AML framework lies at around 0.02%, while spending 507x as much money on compliance programs than we are able to recover through them. Just absolutely absolutely incredible numbers here. As DARPA's notice on A3ML states, quote, the United States still faces challenges in countering money laundering effectively, despite its already draconian efforts which place all U.S. Americans under blanket suspicion. With even more surveillance and the further erosion of the right to presumption of innocence, we can make AML work. Or so DARPA's logic seems to suggest. Current AML programs already disproportionately disfavor marginalized communities, and a pre-crime approach, as envisioned by DARPA, only sets out to make matters worse. Pre-crime programs falling under the category of predictive policing are trained on a set of already biased data points, overwhelmingly punishing those who fall outside of what the government deems the norm. And then to wrap up, 7 members of Congress described the practice in a letter urging U.S. Attorney General to halt federal funding for predictive policing programs in 2024. Quote, mounting evidence indicates that predictive policing technologies do not reduce crime. Instead, they worsen the unequal treatment of Americans. The continued use of such systems creates a dangerous feedback loop. Biased predictions are used to justify disproportionate stops and arrests in minority neighborhoods, which further biases statistics on where crimes are happening. And DARPA has until the end of January, so what, a couple of days to, announce further steps regarding this. And now, going further down this, Whitney Webb commented on this post, and she goes, quote, the part of the government that's never passed an audit and is part of the massive black budget blob is launching a program to, quote, stop money laundering before it happens. If history is any indication, this will just be another tool to clamp down on the informal economy and surveil the public, while enabling businesses as usual at the national security agencies that commit this crime at a scale that would boggle the minds of most. And of course, giving kudos to Lola Leach. She's doing incredible work. Again, go follow at The Rage Tech on Twitter to keep updated on this stuff and other crazy stuff going on. So look, as a Bitcoiner, and remember, we just had Mark Goodwin on last week, and 2 ideas are true here. One, that if we don't ensure privacy on Bitcoin, ensure that you take privacy practices very seriously on an individual level, it could turn out that Bitcoin turns into, the worst surveillance technology that the world has ever seen. And also on the same side, if we ensure that people are taking Bitcoin into custody, that there are good privacy practices out there, that maybe you jump into Lightning, etc., you use good practices like never reusing an address, we can maintain some semblance of anonymity or pseudonymity on the internet, and you can break, tracking on your Bitcoin movement. So we're seeing that as Bitcoin does get adopted, the fiat world is clamping down. They are trying to control with the system, and they can really control the on and off ramps. And of course, if the DOJ continues to use chain analysis, which at this point for a lot of Bitcoiners has been proven to be broken, or rather more a guess than an actual surveillance technology, a surveillance software, things are going to get crazy right now. And this is not the direction I want to see the world go, but you are starting to see that as the world starts to embrace Bitcoin, the fiat world is doing whatever they can to control the movement of transactions. And we say it all the time on the show when we talk about freedom of speech. If you can't speak freely, what makes you think you will be allowed to transact freely? And this is why the Hayek quote of there may never be a time when we take our money back. So, or rather the government gives us our money back. So we have to find a sly roundabout way. And of course that was Bitcoin. So shouts out to Lola for covering these stories. This is like the main, perspective of The Rage, is covering all of these financial crimes, surveillance of the U.S. citizenry, or rather global citizenry, about court cases surrounding privacy. And, you hate to see this stuff, but you love to see Lola covering this, because pre-crime, I don't know about you, but this sounds like, Orwell's nightmare future that we're all trying to fight against. And yet the people in power are like, no, this is what we want to do. We're going to use AI to make the world safer. And you're like, yeah, but that means you're going to, deteriorate my privacy. And now we're all criminals now. Whatever happened to this idea of innocent until proven guilty? It's like, no, just trust the computers. They know what they're doing. They will track this on. It's like, no, sorry, I thought this was a nation of people here, not a nation of computers. But hey, you know, I'm an extremist over here. I'm a Bitcoiner. I believe in freedom, financial freedom, personal freedom. And it seems like, again, the inevitable clash of Bitcoin and the fiat system is starting to rear its head. It's not going to be an easy battle, but if more people start holding Bitcoin, transacting in Bitcoin, and the Bitcoin, you know, the mythical Bitcoin circular economies take off, we will win. It's still going to be a lot of work. Anyways, I do want to pass it to Arniel because this is kind of more up your alley here. You know, you're at SIA CFO. You talk about financial freedom, the financial future of people. You talk about taxes, AML, etc. So what's your thoughts on hearing this DARPA pre-crime AML notice that was dropped?
Yeah, honestly, I think it's ridiculous, but it's par for the course. It's not surprising that the powers to be, that the elites are doing this. I think they see that their power and their influence is waning. There's been a shift lately, just within society and just within politics over the past couple of years here, and so they're recognizing that the power that they once had, the sway and the influence they once had, isn't as effective anymore. And so they're trying to keep as much power as they can. And it's honestly the sovereign individual. If you've all read that book, the Sovereign Individual book, it's playing out. And in one of the chapters, as sovereigns, as individuals start to opt out of the system, what ends up happening in the book, as they predict, is more governments and more entities will want to clamp down and do this protectionism type of thing and keep that power in control.
Yeah, exactly. This is it really is a sovereign individual thesis playing out in real time as the fiat currencies or the powers that be that control the fiat institutions start to lose their power. They're going to clamp down, and we're seeing this happen in real time. So absolutely insane stuff. Sophie, are you there? It looks like your internet's messed up. So
It is what's going on. The SB numbers are
okay, well, you're kind of caught in the matrix right now. So we'll try to figure out your internet. We'll move into the culture, and hopefully we can get it fixed by the end of the show. All right, guys. Well, as you can tell, we got our boy Arniel here, and we're going to be talking about, you know, financial planning here and who needs this, and maybe a good way for you guys to take advantage of the tax codes going on. So we're talking about Bitcoin and taxes. It's an iffy conversation here at Simply Bitcoin. It's a conversation no one wants to have, but it's important to have. So let's get into the culture, and let's talk with Arniel here.
I want to give a shout out to our sponsor, HIVE Digital Technologies. As the first ever public miner, HIVE's been battle tested through every possible market. And as the first with an AI strategy, HIVE continues to redefine the future of sustainable energy. Also, gotta casually drop this in here, HIVE consistently tops the industry in Bitcoin mined per exahash. They're lean and mean, they're green and clean, and they're changing the game. Learn more by following them at HIVE Digital Tech or check out their website, hivedigitaltech.com.
Alrighty then, guys. Of course, make sure you get yourself a ticket to BitBlockBoom, a true Bitcoin conference. It's going to be April 3rd through the 6th, 2025 in Dallas. We're going to be there. We're going to have the whole news desk, the whole Simply Bitcoin team is going to be there. If you don't get there, we will be streaming this online for you guys. But make sure you go to BitBlockBoom. It's one of my personal favorite conferences. It's like my home conference. I met all of my, I would consider, lifelong friends there, and it's really laid back. You can hang out with all the Bitcoiners. It's where LobbyCon came from. It's where PoolCon came from. The real fun is hanging out in the lobby with everyone. So make sure you get a ticket to BitBlockBoom. Use the promo code BBB21. I repeat, BBB21 to get $100 off your ticket. All right, actually, before I move forward, I do want to give a shout out to Craig Little for a £9.99 super chat, and he says, send it. Oh, well, wrong one. wrong one. But guys, we did turn on the super chats again, so appreciate it, Craig. Let's hope we don't get wrecked over here on YouTube. But super chats are turned on again. Thank you for the tip, man. We really appreciate it. All right, let's get in on do this conversation with Arniel. So let's just do the elevator pitch. What is CFO? What is your goal here? Who's it for? And then we'll kind of talk about everything else afterwards.
Yeah, so CFO exists to protect the wealth of small business owners and Bitcoiners from taxation. So our government, they steal from its citizens in two main ways. The first is inflation. And I know all of us here, we know very well the effects of inflation. It's why we're in Bitcoin. It's why we're saving into a superior asset and superior technology. But the second way that they steal from us is through taxes. And it's not as well of a known topic and subject. And so that's why we exist, is to protect people from taxation. The way we do this is through strategic advisory, tax advisory, and business advisory, tax filings, and then also we do bookkeeping for businesses as well. The reason I got into this was I've led finance teams at some of the fastest growing tech startups. And I saw time and time again, the people that I was working with, they needed someone that they could trust. After selling a company that I worked at, I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And right around the same time is when I got into Bitcoin. And I immediately identified with the community and the ethos. And so I knew that I needed to do something on the tax side, because that's honestly, for almost all of us here, taxes will be the biggest expense in our life. And even doubly so for business owners. Unfortunately, they are unfairly taxed the most. But that also means they have the most opportunities to save on taxes as well. And so what we do is we take a proactive approach with our clients, meeting with them throughout the year, guiding them through not only their tax situation and putting in strategies in place to save them thousands of dollars, but also walking them through their financial operations and making sure that they have good record keeping. That's honestly the biggest gotcha with the IRS, is if your records aren't in place. That put an audit into your business and your personal financials and your tax returns. And so we're here to protect our clients from taxation.
Love it. Okay. We were kind of trolling a little bit before the show. And you mentioned the fact that, hey, even if, well, first of all, I guess give some context here. We are seeing kind of this rhetoric come out of the Trump administration about eliminating income tax, capital gains tax, etc. So what's your thoughts on that? And, will CFO have a future if that is the case, that they eliminated, capital gains tax on Bitcoin?
Yeah, a few thoughts on that. One, I love that. Again, I think taxation is theft. I'm first and foremost a Bitcoiner, and then secondly, an accountant. And I don't deal just with taxes, but again, taxes is the most pressing issue for most of us. Now, if income tax gets abolished, most likely it will get replaced with something else. And we're seeing the ERS, the External Revenue Service, and tariffs and taxing trade. Who knows what that will all lead to? But the US government isn't going to want to easily give away their power and their taxation revenue. It's going to have to come from somewhere else. And I think we will see the effects of that in the price of goods, and maybe even in consumption tax. So I'm not sure where I stand on that just yet, as far as where I want things to go, where I'd like to see things go. But what I am here to do is, whatever's happening out there in the world, making sure that we are putting those strategies in place, creating those strategies so that we can take advantage of that tax code.
Love it. Okay. Obviously, this question is going to be speculation, but considering, this is kind of your field, what giving some odds here, what is, what are the odds that you think elimination of capital gains tax is actually a possibility? It sounds like crazy rhetoric. Obviously, a lot of Bitcoiners, libertarians are like, yes, if he does this, Trump is the GOAT. But when you kind of bring it back down to reality, what are the odds that this might actually happen?
Yeah, so previously I was going to give it a lot lower, percentage. But now that we have, I mean, what we're calling it, the digital asset strategic reserve, or whatever it is, the stockpile, and it becoming more and more in the conversation, I don't think it's out of the question. So I'd probably put it at a 60% in my opinion.
Wait, did you say 60%?
60%, yeah.
Wow.
I was gonna say like a 40-60, but I'm saying 60% now. And I'd love for that to happen. That's even better for us, you know, especially if any of us are living on our Bitcoin, or wanting to use it as a medium exchange. We don't want to have that be taxed. And I think that's the biggest barrier right now, especially if the US is going to adopt it.
Love it. Yeah.
Taxes are unconstitutional, and taxing Bitcoin is
100%.
unconstitutional. Abolish the taxes.
100%.
Yes. Remember I said Sophie is more radical than Nico? That's a perfect example of that. Okay.
Bring tariffs back.
Let's go. All right. Arniel, bringing it back to you. So if someone out there is, you know, looking to get in touch with you, like who is your ideal customer here? Is it small businesses? Is it individuals? Like, who are you going to help along their journey?
Yeah, so I'd say I'm at the intersection of Bitcoin and small business, and specifically small business, because next to Bitcoin, I think owning a business, owning an asset is the best determining factor in setting yourself up for your financial future. And so here's my hope with the business. My hope is, one, more individuals get into Bitcoin. And so I'm preparing tax returns for individuals right now. Part of those conversations is, hey, you should learn about Bitcoin. And I just had this conversation with someone last night. The next step is, if you're a Bitcoiner, I want you to be a small business owner as well. And the reason for that is, as more of us get into Bitcoin, as more of us become more sovereign and take control of our financials, I think the next phase of the world, we need better leaders in our communities. We need better leaders in business. So I want, more than anything, Bitcoiners who share the ethos that we have of freedom and privacy to be the people who are leading our communities, leading our businesses, leading our cities. And so I mainly serve small business owners and Bitcoiners.
Awesome. Well, adding to that conversation. So you're not just for Bitcoiners. Now, when you talk to, you know, for lack of better terms, like a normie small business, and you bring up the idea of Bitcoin, like, what is their response to this? Like, do you tell them you're a Bitcoiner? Like, do you hide that you're a Bitcoiner? How does this work?
I definitely don't hide that I'm a Bitcoiner. Most people in my circles know that I'm a Bitcoiner. And surprisingly, so the circles that I run into, I'm in Tulsa, the heart of MAGA country, essentially. And so, you know, there's that certain demographic of people. They already see the ills of society and what's happening within our government. And so their minds are very primed for what is Bitcoin, especially, you know, with the latest news coming out the past few weeks here with the strategic stockpile. And so when they're speaking to me, they're coming to me mainly for tax advice, but then I put in place strategic plans and strategies for them to continue to save in taxes. But then also, once you save in taxes, what do you do with that money? Now, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not an investment advisor. But what I do tell them is, hey, we should look into Bitcoin and at least educate yourself on that. You know, you want a 401k, you want a Roth IRA, you have some money in that. Maybe do some education and see if that might be a part of the equation.
Love it. Okay. I do want to transition to the strategies, but I do have one question, and it's on this topic. So, you know, you're saying that you told us a story earlier about your MAGA neighbors that are now hearing about Bitcoin. You basically work, you know, in more of a normie field, and you're trying to bring Bitcoiners into it. So my question right now is, what do you think the general sentiment is from like someone that comes to you that isn't a Bitcoiner, obviously they're starting to learn that Bitcoin is something important. And are you seeing like a growing trend of people becoming more involved or interested in Bitcoin? Like what is the development there in the last couple of, I don't know, last couple of months, I guess?
Yeah, I still think we're still very early. Again, I mean, the signal and the conversation out there has definitely been growing, but we're still very early, which is actually a benefit to us because, I mean, I think we're entrenched in the conversation daily. I mean, we're seeing stuff about XRP, this, and stuff with shitcoins coming back up again. But most of the population, I'd say 95% of the population, they have no idea that this conversation is even happening. And so what that allows us is we have the opportunity to tell them about Bitcoin. They're already interested in it. They see the conversation happening in the news or in social media. So then we as Bitcoiners have the opportunity to talk to them about, hey, this is why Bitcoin only, and let's get you on your orange pill journey.
Love it. Love it. Okay. Now, before we started the show, and you kind of just talked about it a little bit, you were mentioning that you might have, a good tax strategy for the Bitcoiners out there, and you framed it as a speculative attack on your 401k. So, let's give some people out there, if they're interested in this, some actionable advice. So, what is this speculative attack on a 401k?
Yes. So it's not so much a tax strategy. It is related to taxes because it is related to the 401k. But this is more of a stacking strategy that I've put out there, and I've gotten a lot of comments from people in saying that they actually did this strategy. So today, I think many of us we're seeing the price of Bitcoin. I'm not even going to begin to make any assumptions on where the Bitcoin price is going to be, a year, 2 years from now. I'm the worst person to ask on that. But what I do know is many of us want to buy more Bitcoin, but we're strapped for cash. We don't have much dry powder left. But where a lot of people do have money is in their 401ks, locked away in this 401k prison. Now, today we have financial instruments like, we have MicroStrategy, a proxy for Bitcoin. We have the ETFs. But what about that person who wants to hold Bitcoin specifically, self-custody it, and have control over their Bitcoin? Well, what you can do is you can take a loan from your 401k. And what you can do with that loan, so here's the details. With your loan, you can take up to $50,000 or 50% of your 401k, whichever is higher, or sorry, whichever is lower. The exception there is if your loan balance, or sorry, your 401k balance is less than $20,000, you can take up to $10,000 as a loan, no questions asked. Now, you do have to pay an interest on that loan. And I think today it's right around probably 9 or 10%. But here's the kicker. That interest, you're not paying it to some bank or some financial institution. You're paying it back into the 401k. So you're literally paying interest back to your future self. And so the benefit of that is now you have all this cash that you can access, and you can put that straight into Bitcoin that you can self-custody. And so again, you will have monthly payments that you have to make on this 401k loan, but you can think of it this way. Many of us are already DCAing, already doing recurring buys. Why don't we just take those recurring buys and accelerate them and use them for today? This, of course, does have risks. It's not a strategy for everyone, but it is an option. You don't get taxed on a loan on a 401k. There's no penalties, and you are literally paying yourself back on that interest. And so I was talking to WS Bitcoin, and he told me, hey, if you put this together with multiple loans, get a 401k loan, buy Bitcoin, pay back that loan, do it again, just do a rinse and repeat. And this could be a great strategy for you.
Wow. At this point is a time where I wish I had a 401k. You know, this sounds awesome. I wish I had a retirement here, but
I should have listened to my parents.
Yeah, seriously. So it sounds like a strategy to essentially, you know, obviously you're taking a loan out, but like you smash buy Bitcoin, you know, I don't know how long the process is to get the loan, but you smash buy Bitcoin today, you know, at least in timing type stuff. And then you DCA back into the pay the interest off. And so like you get the Bitcoin price today and then you just pay it off as you go along. That sounds insane. If I had a 401k, I would probably do this. So, man, actually, we do have a good question in here. And I'm going to kind of reframe the question a little bit. And maybe you can kind of add on that with this 401k strategy here.
Is it about the kidneys?
No. No, that's a good one, though. Skylar King goes, why buy MSTR MicroStrategy when you can just buy Bitcoin? I don't get it. And I think in this context, you could say, why buy MicroStrategy within your 401k versus buying Bitcoin? I think a lot of people don't understand, the technicalities going on here, that it's still extremely hard to actually buy Bitcoin in these 401k strategies, unless it's like a Roth IRA or something like that. Most people don't understand what's going on there. So, Arniel, could you kind of talk through this a little bit?
Yeah. So you are able to buy Bitcoin directly from retirement accounts. But the possibility of you doing that, typically, it's not very easy. You need what's called a self-directed 401k or self-directed IRA, Roth IRA. And that basically means you can invest in anything that you want. You have to do it within a legal framework. You have to have documents written up. And typically, if you have a 401k from your employer, that's not even a possibility. So most people with a 401k, their funds are locked up into there. And the bad part about it too is typically the investment options that they have within there are very limited. And so what a lot of people end up doing is, if they're able to invest in specific instruments, they can buy MicroStrategy as a proxy for Bitcoin, or they can buy the ETF as a proxy for Bitcoin. But unfortunately, today, there's not a real way to invest directly or buy directly Bitcoin inside of an employer 401k, unless you have what's called a self-directed 401k.
Love it. Appreciate that. Yeah, I think, me being the ideal case, a lot of us Bitcoiners, we learned about the traditional financial system after we, became completely Bitcoiners. And so we're just like, why don't we just buy Bitcoin directly? But I think a lot of the stuff we're seeing recently in the last couple of months, whether it's, like SAB 121, FASB accounting rule change, I think a lot of people don't understand just how much capital is actually locked up in 401ks or in the traditional financial system, and how difficult it actually is to get into Bitcoin. But now we're seeing that a lot of these roadblocks are slowly but surely eroding. And so we will be seeing a huge influx of capital coming into Bitcoin from people that are Bitcoiners, but their capital is just locked up in these traditional financial instruments. And, you helping people understand that, I think, is absolutely great. So love to hear it. So if you are back now, so you're here, you're clear. Do you want to chime in a little bit on this combo, or we can get Arniel's, last 2-minute elevator page final words for the audience?
Well, I just wanted to quickly mention on the DARPA article that you covered, a lot of people would look at that article and suddenly panic, right? But I think one of the privileges of owning Bitcoin is looking at that article and, while other people are saying, oh my God, we're living in a real life version of Minority Report, I feel really privileged because I feel zero fear. While you were reading that, I was like, okay, cool, come and take it. I dare you. But at the same time, it's making me wonder if, this civil war that we thought was going to be between the left and the right is actually going to be between the people and those in power. Is it going to be the men with the guns versus the people with the guns, defending our right to self-custody, defending our right to live life free from the tyranny of government? And so, this might be the start of that type of conflict, but in reality, I feel no fear because I have God, I have Bitcoin, and we have guns.
Bars, absolute bars. Love it. Okay, let me see if the chat's saying anything. There's a couple people say, I just ended my 401k and just bought Bitcoin. It's better. Actually, maybe talk about that, because that is obviously another strategy for people, but you will be taking kind of a haircut on that.
You will be taking a haircut. So full disclosure. So 4 years ago, when lockdown and COVID was happening, people were able to take out of their retirements completely penalty free. I ended up taking advantage of that. And they were able to defer the taxes. Today, that's not an option anymore. And so if you want to cash out your 401k or your any retirement accounts that you have before the age, which is 59 and a half, you will have a penalty, and you'll also have to claim that as taxable income. And so, you'll end up taking a haircut on that. Now, you might decide it's worth it and to go ahead and do that and to just buy Bitcoin directly. But for many of you, you might not want to do that. And so that strategy, the speculative attack on your 401k, could be a good option there.
Love it. Absolutely incredible. Okay. Well, we are getting close to the end of the show, but Arniel, I do want to give you one final message to the audience. It could be, about hitting you up for, some financial advice or financial accounting. I won't say financial advice. Or it could be about where Bitcoin is going, or whatever's top of mind. What is the final message you want to leave with our audience?
Yeah, first of all, thank you everyone for having me here. I'll leave it with this. I think taxation is theft, but we owe it to ourselves. I think it is our God-given right to pay as little tax as possible within the legal framework. I don't advocate anyone go outside of the legal framework, because then that just puts a big target on your back. But I think everyone should learn more about the tax code and figure out ways to reduce their taxable income, including maybe starting a side business, starting a business, a side hustle, to take advantage of these things. Feel free to follow me on X, on Twitter, Arniel Cia, or you can look up Sovereign CPA, and my name is under there. And I post a lot of other tax strategies on there. My mission is to eventually compile all the strategies I have out there and put it out into the Twitter sphere and on my website. So feel free to follow me on there. And if you're interested, if you would like to talk, if you want to work with me, feel free to go to Cia CFO, my website. Again, it's on my link, my Twitter bio, but feel free to contact me on there.
Love it. Love it. Yeah, guys, for the audio listeners, it's siacfo.com, SIACFO. So get in touch with him, and of course, follow him on Twitter. Man, really, really glad to have you on today. What a great show. So thank you so much, Arniel. Hang out behind the scenes for a second while I wrap up the show. For everyone out there that doesn't know who the lovely and beautiful internet Sophie is, this is Nico's wife, the more radical side of Nico. She fills in. Nico's actually headed to El Salvador right now for the Plan B conference, so I'll be handling the hosting duties for the rest of the week. But Sophie, thank you so much for coming on today. We miss you on the show.
I'll be back on Monday.
Oh, okay. We miss you on the show. It's been a while. Good to have you back. Thank you so much, Soph.
Bye, guys.
All right, guys. Well, you already know the deal. Smash the like button. Comment on the show. Let us know your thoughts on everything we talked about today. And of course, if you think we're providing value for you guys, hit the subscriber button. Come help us push the peaceful Bitcoin revolution. We will be back tomorrow at 12:15 p.m. Eastern time or thereabouts, about 5 minutes afterwards. Anyways, I've been your host, Optimus Fields, and we will be back tomorrow. On that note, guys, I love you and we appreciate you guys' support. Have a good rest of your day. It's been a good one. Peace out.
Today's episode was brought to you by BitcoinWell.com, a Bitcoin-only platform on a mission to enable financial independence.